services conducted by the Research and PG Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College Autonomous, True. To align ourselves with the purposes of law, I call upon Alina Rosach to render the prayer.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, O my soul, I worship your holy name. Sing like never before, O my soul, I worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawn. It's time to sing the song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me. Let me be singing till the evening come. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. I worship your holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship your holy name. I worship your holy name.
Thank you, Alina. I invite Dr. Biju John M., Associate Professor and Head, Research Department of Commerce, to welcome the gathering.
Warm good afternoon to everyone. So this is another international virtual webinar hosted by the Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College Autonomous Thrissur. So the Department of Commerce of St. Thomas College has been hosting these type of international and national level webinars for the past 2 decades. And it has been successfully conducted over the years. So for today's session, we have an eminent resource person from London, Dr. Claire Walsh. And we have our dear principal, Reverend Dr. Martin K. First of all, I may welcome Dr. Martin K., our dear principal. As we all know, this is the fag end of this academic session here. And in spite of a lot of academic and administrative responsibilities, Father Martin has spared his time to join this program and deliver the presidential address. So on behalf of the Department of Commerce and Thomas College Autonomous, we welcome Father to this program. Next, we have the most respected guest, chief guest, and the resource person, and the person who inaugurated this session, Dr. Claire Walsh, who is the head of education, Institute of Analytics, London, UK. She has inspired us with a lot of time over the past one week, making communication with us regarding the participation of this program. And being an eminent personality in the field of the emerging discipline, that is analytics. She is an expert in this field, and she has joined with us to inaugurate this program and to deliver an address, expert talk on the subject business analytics. On behalf of the Department of Commerce and St. Thomas College Autonomous, we welcome Madam to this program. Welcome, Madam. Thank you. And we have a lot of this program is being conducted particularly for the teachers, the research scholars, academicians, and the professionals, selected professionals. So only such personalities has joined this program, and I welcome all of those participants. Particularly, I welcome we have the coordinator, Dr. Divya George, and organizing secretary, Dr. Professor Sindhu George, and a lot of research scholars and the postgraduate students and teachers from other colleges who have joined this program. And on behalf of the St. Thomas College Department of Commerce, I welcome each and everyone to this program. Then today, our technical session will be handled by Dr. Claire Walsh on the topic, an introduction to business analytics. As we may be aware, that is, analytics may be used as an input to support human decisions or may drive fully automated decisions. So business analytics refers to the skills, technologies, and practices for continuous iterative exploration and investigation of past business performance to gain insight and drive business planning. It has numerous responsibilities. Business analysts work on utilizing statistical data, big data, data visualization to aid the business decisions. As we all know, this analytics supports the business decisions, and we know that decision making is the core of the management functions. And in that capacity, business analytics has a lot of scope in the coming years, and a lot of technologies and softwares are being developed to promote the support of this business analytics. It has emerged as a separate discipline of study relating to business, commerce, and computer science nowadays. So I hope the discussions, that the expert talk, and the deliberations to follow would be very much useful to the participants of this program. Once again, welcoming you all. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and welcome you to the program. Next, I invite Dr. Father Martin K.A., Principal in Charge, St. Thomas College Autonomous Thrissur, for the Presidential Address.
Good afternoon to one and all. Respected Dr. Claire Walsh, Head of Education, Institute of Analytics, London, United Kingdom. Dr. Biju John M., HOD and Dean of Arts and Humanities. Dr. Divya George, the Coordinator. Sindhu George, Organizing Secretary, the faculty members, the delegates, students. From time immemorial, man has created markets, and we have financial control over the markets. And for primarily, it was said that men were controlling the markets. But when time advanced now, or when we think about the present time, we think that humankind is controlled by the markets. Which is controlled by which? That's a question now arises in the present scenario. So we do not know now the human beings have become victims, and the markets have become very stronger, I think. And even the decisions of a human being is controlled very much by the market. And the markets have such a power in them that they influence highly upon the human decisions. And sometimes people are in a dilemma to buy which or what to think. I'm reminded of a statement from Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation. He says to a customer that when you are going to buy something, please ask yourself whether can you live without that particular object. Then take a decision. Because you were living without that object until now, and you will be able to live without that particular object even afterwards, then why at all you buy that thing? So he has given us a strong exhortation saying that we must ask ourselves if at all you want to buy something, whether you can live without that. So we have a very good resource person, Dr. Claire Walsh, and especially she will be giving a talk on business analytics, and the financial marketing. All these things very much related to our subject, especially in BCom and MCom. Hope that this session will enhance our intellect and our brains, and it will help us see things in a different perspective, especially when a resource person from abroad talk to us. It will be very much helpful. Wishing you all the best for this 2-day conference, Fincon. Let me conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Father. All the participants are requested to switch on their videos for our technical team to take a screenshot of the proceedings for the documentation purpose. Thank you all. We are indeed honored to have Dr. Claire Walsh, Head of Education, Institute of Analytics, London, in this platform of FinCon 2022. I invite Professor Sindhu George, Organizing Secretary and Assistant Professor, Research Department of Commerce, to introduce the guests to the participants.
Good afternoon, everyone. I extend a warm welcome to our International Virtual Conference, FinCon 2022. I find immense pleasure in introducing our chief guest for the day, Dr. Claire Walsh. Dr. Claire Walsh is the head of education at the Institute of Analytics, a role that combines her two passions in work. Before moving to the Institute of Analytics, Claire worked as a teacher and authored over 20 successful textbooks, including several global market leaders. She is also an expert in assessment and has advised high-stake testing organizations and government on assessment design. After becoming interested in the emerging field of learning analytics and AI score testing, she retrained in the field of computer science. She completed an MSc in web science and then a PhD in web science, looking at scoring complex skills through telemetry gameplay data with the University of Southampton. In her studies, she was co-supervised and assessed by both the departments of electronics and computer science and education, reflecting the complex interdisciplinary nature of modern data analytics. In her role, she intends to work to help others to become fully data literate. We are really thankful to Dr. Claire Walsh for taking the time out of her busy schedule to attend the function. She'll be talking to us on topic and introduction to business analytics. Ma'am, we are happy to have you here as a speaker today. On behalf of Research Department of Commerce, I invite Dr. Claire Walsh to inaugurate this international virtual conference and handle the technical session. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And I am thrilled to be here with you all today. Dr. Martin Kay, Dr. Biju John, thank you so much for your kind invitation to speak. And Professor Sindhu George, Professor Divya George, thank you very much for your work to organize this, and the many, many others who I know will have been working hard to make this happen. Today is about the future. I am here to talk to you technically about the future, and I will in a moment, but I think it's also about a celebration of how far we have come. And when I think about the future and problem solving, I think it's fair to say that no student cohort, no faculty body has faced as many challenges and difficulties as the ones over the last few years through the pandemic. And I am full of hope for the future and optimistic when I think about how well these students and their teachers have coped with the changes demanded on them and how well prepared they'll be for the future coming. I very much enjoyed the prayer sung by Alina Rose and the message behind it, that we're heading to a new horizon, a new dawn with love and hope, and of course the technical skills that we need to get there. So I suspect that when students reflect on their time at St. Thomas's, their reasons for choosing the university will not be the same things that they remember as being important. My feeling is that they will remember the relationships and the friendships that got them through this very difficult and challenging time. More than that, though, I think that the attitude of the teachers at St. Thomas's, I know from speaking to them, is to prepare students to go forward into the future. And when I've had conversations with faculty staff, it's very difficult for us to give students all the knowledge that they're going to need, simply because we don't know yet what knowledge they'll need in the future. Business analytics is fast changing, very rapid changing. What we need are people with a love of learning, with the skills to be able to seek help and find answers to their problems and address these things with confidence. And I know that that is what a training at St. Thomas will give these students. And so it's with huge excitement that I look forward to introducing you to the world of business analytics. You're going to love it. It's really exciting. You know, I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you as you navigate this new future, which I know from the outside can look a little bit frightening, but once you come in, once you get on the inside, it's actually a really fantastic thing to be involved with. And so I am very excited to be delivering the technical talk to you in a few moments.
Thank you, ma'am. We are indeed honored to have you here in this session. Now, we'll be moving on to the technical session on Introduction to Business Analytics, led by Dr. Claire Walsh, our guest of honor today. Over to you, ma'am.
Ma'am, your mic is mute. Ma'am?
Oh, yeah. Let me just, I'm going to share my screen. Let me, can I share my screen? Present your entire screen. Right, there we go. Right, I think I'm there. Share. There we go. Right. Okay, so I am here today to talk to you about your place in the changing landscape of finance analytics, and you very much have a place here. So time to get a cup of coffee. I need you wide awake and ready and excited for the future that's waiting for you. When we think about what we face in the post-pandemic recovery, it's, you know, it's not over yet. We have a lot of challenges coming, and it's quite a different world that we're going into. A lot of people, unfortunately, have left the workforce early, obviously, tragically. Some have died. Many more have long-term health issues that prevent them from working full-time as they did before. A large number have also chosen to leave the workforce early and take early retirement because, you know, it's been difficult and it has made a lot of people rethink their priorities. And so we already have new challenges in the world of business in the UK with rising wages, rapid rise in wages. And this means that there are new opportunities for machine-driven solutions. One of the big changes as well, of course, is that we're not just talking about big data anymore. Even just 6 months ago, we were discussing big data a lot, but a lot of the social media data that we have, the data on how people shop online in particular, is not valid anymore because things have changed that rapidly. My feeling is a passion for big data will come back. But right now, it's not that helpful knowing how things happened 5 or 10 years ago, because things have changed so dramatically. Here's another problem we faced in 2022, a major problem. How are we going to solve climate change? And businesses in particular are being asked to play their role in this. And two of the exciting developments that came out of the COP21 talks at the end of last year were these two enormous data set developments. They are multi-billion-dollar, large-scale commercial demonstration projects of the value of data to be able to solve some of our most urgent and complex problems. And so it's right that we get interested in business analytics and data analytics at this point. When we think about data analytics, it is a complex blend of many fields. Of course, we need the mathematical skills because it is analytics, it's maths. We need some knowledge of computer science because all of the things that we are doing, we're doing them on computers, and those computers have limitations. They have some affordances, some benefits. And our machine learning algorithms are very much located in the intersection of those two subjects. But then we need to apply these things somewhere, and we need domain knowledge and skills. This is where all of your business and commerce skills are highly valuable. And we have always had software development at the intersection of computer science and domain knowledge. We have a lot of software that is very user-friendly. And at the intersection of domain knowledge and mathematics, we've had traditional research. And this was my way into data analytics. Data analytics is right in the middle of all of those three subjects. It is very much interdisciplinary. You cannot approach this just from one of any of these three subjects. You need to have a minimum knowledge of all three to be able to do it well. And I've noticed that there is actually a new buzzword in business at the moment, which is fusion teams. Everybody is talking about fusion teams, which is just what I was just saying. We need interdisciplinary skills. It's no good expecting data analytics to be carried out just by the one person who does the computers in the business. We need to be able to work together, all of us, to understand what each person is doing. And that's why business analytics is so important. We're talking about data literacy. And when we break down what data literacy is into the many skills, you'll see you already have a place there. It's about understanding the legislation and the ethics of doing business. It's about having numerical reasoning skills. Again, anybody with a business background usually has incredibly good numerical reasoning. It's about understanding the environment where we're collecting the data from, how the business works, what services are important, what matters when we pre-process it. Perhaps the pre-processing is a little bit more technical, and then we do get into the technical proficiency skills to be able to analyze the data, but they're not that challenging. Then we come back out again into information management. What do we do with the results? How do we make change? How do we instigate progress going forwards? And of course, we have a duty of care that we need to build trust. We need to build responsibility into everything that we do. And so I hope when you look at what data literacy is, you'll see you already have a place there. You already have a role and a foundation. But some things have changed, and particularly the mathematics has changed. When we look at the machine learning algorithms, if we think about traditional mathematics, and I've gone very basic here, we would give the machine the input variables, the 4 and the 6, and then the machine would have to come up with the answer. We would tell it what function it needs to do. We would like it to add these numbers together, please, and it will come up with the output. And that's how we've always done mathematics. The machine learning algorithms really change that around. We will give the machine input variables. So we will still tell it, here is the variable 4, here is the variable 6, and we will show it some examples of what success looks like, number 10. And it's up to the machine how it gets to that final number. And in this case, it's pretty easy. You just add and you use all of the variables, but it's not always that way. Sometimes the machine can choose which variables to look at and which ones to ignore, or it can, whatever function it thinks it needs, that's what it can do. So all machine learning algorithms, whatever we are doing, boils down to this one basic sum here: why the outcome that we are looking for, the judgment that we are looking for, is a function of our data X. And the machine's job is to understand what that function is. And sometimes it does an amazing job. This is a narrow statistical approach to AI. It's very different to any of the AI approaches we took in the last 60 years. And it's been scaling incredibly well. It's been coping with all sorts of problems that we never thought machines could cope with before. Image recognition, voice recognition, chatbots, incredible things. But machines take shortcuts too. We know any good student will, if they can find a shortcut, usually take it. That's the nature of students and university life. And the machines will do the same. They're exactly the same. One of the very early successful applications was in 2016 at Cornell University. And they trained a machine to recognize the difference between wolves and dogs. And this is an incredibly challenging task for a machine because it can't work with pixels, the little dots in a photograph, because if you look at my face now and then you look at it from the side on, there isn't one single pixel in the same place. They're all completely different, and we have to do a complex thing with lines. Very challenging, and particularly the difference between wolves and dogs was very hard because they're very similar animals. But this machine was unbelievably successful. It was getting all of them right. And in 2016, we were so excited about the possibilities of machines can bring to us. When the team looked a little bit more closely, they realized that actually the machine wasn't quite that clever. We assumed that the machine was looking at the animal and making its decision because that's what we as humans were doing. What the machine had done was find a very good proxy variable for what the animal was. We know that wolves like to live on the snowy mountains of Colorado or in Russia. And so if the backdrop was snow, white snow, it assumed it was a wolf. And we know dogs tend to be playing in the garden, in people's back gardens. And so if the animal had a background of green grass, it assumed it had to be a dog. And it found that this very simple proxy, the color of the background, which is a much easier task for a machine to recognize, was a very effective proxy for whether the animal was a dog or a wolf. And so we do have to be careful. We need people who are trained to be able to ask questions about how these machines are reaching their decisions and question whether or not this is fair. And we've got the data and the code are both available if you would like to try this yourself. I've got the links there, and I'm happy to share the slides. So I think, you know, we have to go forwards in the field of business analytics. I don't think it's an option anymore. We can't just wait to use new software, I'm afraid. I know all business students would prefer me to say, yes, the software's coming. I don't think that's the case. I don't know for sure, but I don't think that's the case. When we think about when Excel was launched in 1987, to be honest, I think none of us actually wanted it. We wanted Word, and it came packaged in with Word in the Office package. And then around about the 1980s, we worked out what we could actually do with it, that we could create these nice graphics with tables and get some basic insights from it. Hugely popular all the way through the 1990s and the 2000s. But by 2002, the code on the internet had been tweaked to make the birth of social media possible. Because before, if you wanted to post a photograph before 2002, you had to be able to actually code the website. In 2002, it was possible just to upload a photograph and a comment at the click of a button. What that meant was we had all these new data types that we realized that actually Excel can't do anything with. We have images, video, voice recordings, free text. In fact, today, 70 to 80% of the world's data is in a format that you can't possibly analyze in Excel. And that's a problem if your job is to gain insight and understanding through analytics. Another reason why I think the software is not going to catch up is because of the way that the current analytics tools are developed. They are open source environments. And what this means is things like Python or R, no one person, no one team actually writes those algorithms. Nobody controls it. They are developed. Anything we do in Python or anything we do in R is an amazing gift to the world. They are free. Not one of us has to pay for it. These tools, though, are developed by thousands and thousands of incredibly gifted, talented individuals who spend their weekends writing code for us. Research teams at universities, again, writing code for us. And the pace of development of Python and R is just astounding. It's so fast. I don't think any one team, for example, the one team at Microsoft, as gifted as they are, cannot possibly keep up with the pace of change when thousands and thousands of people around the world collaborate together. And so if we want to stay up to date, I do believe we need to learn a little bit of coding. We learn how to type. None of us, if I said, you know, let's learn how to type, none of you would be enthusiastic about it, but you'd learn to do it, and you have learned to do it. And I think it's the same thing. When we talk about coding, we're only really talking about 5 or 6 lines, not a lot. Certainly not the kind of stuff that these guys need. And we have, with membership with us, we have over 300 courses to get you there if you need to, and they will take you step by step. So I think these days, when I started talking about this about 5 or 6 years ago, some people I think were AI unaware. They didn't realize the judgments that were being made in their lives by machines. I think most people today know AI exists, know some applications, they know of chatbots. We really need to get you to be working effectively in the future, to be knowledgeable, to understand what these algorithms are doing, what they can't do as well. And, you know, your future's going to be easier if you can become a practitioner a little bit. And again, becoming a practitioner, I'm talking learning 5 or 6 lines of code. We're not talking anything too difficult. And we're certainly not trying to get you to the very top end, which is the AI researchers, where you need super computer science skills. And bear in mind my background, you know, I came to computing late. Anybody can do it. Big data is moving away. Graph data is becoming incredibly useful because that's all about relationships. And with graph data, actually, although it's incredibly cutting edge, incredibly useful, really, all you just need are a few SQL skills. And many of you, I think, listening to me now will already have some SQL, some SQL skills to be able to traverse this knowledge graph. And there are amazing opportunities once we work with relational data like that, relationships like this, to be able to identify new business opportunities. So yes, we need some new skills. It's going to be fine. Trust me, you're going to learn these skills. A second reason, okay, we have some interesting things to do with our time. We don't want to be doing all the boring stuff anymore. There are lots of exciting things to do. In the field of analytics, we don't have a magic crystal ball to predict the future. There will always be events that come, like the pandemic, that will come out of nowhere and shock us and leave us also wondering what to do. But what we can do is give anyone a competitive edge, and often in the modern world, having a competitive edge is enough. There are all sorts of things we can predict going into the future. We can model uncertainty. Here are just 2 types of uncertainty. This one is subway uncertainty. Some of you may be familiar with this. Let's say I travel into the Institute of Analytics office in London every day, and I record, because I'm an analyst, I record every day how much time it takes me to make that commute. And some days it's really good, some days it's 36 minutes, and some days it's a bit bad. Some days it takes me almost an hour. And I keep that it over a normal curve, and I can see here, well, on average, it took me about 42 minutes. But if I have a really important meeting to attend on Monday morning, then I know I need to leave around about 55 minutes for that journey to ensure that I'm there for that meeting on time. And I might also like to plan for what I'm going to do with my time if actually I get an extra 25 minutes and my train arrives much earlier. As long as future events are drawn from the same distribution, we can very easily predict and make plans around that. We have coconut uncertainties. These are a little bit less easy to predict. Let's say after my hard work at the Institute of Analytics, let's say I go on holiday to this beautiful beach and I'm sitting underneath a palm tree looking at the seaside. I think this is a beach somewhere in southern India, maybe. And a coconut falls on my head and I have to go to hospital, and it's ruined my plans. This is a coconut uncertainty. They are random events. They happen. They happen to some people somewhere sometimes. But we can actually model these coconut uncertainties into our predictions for the future, and we can plan what to do. And in general, many people underestimate the number of coconuts that are going to fall. And what I mean by that is, lots and lots of events that happen to people somewhere in the world could well happen to our business. And if we just assume that those events will happen to ours, we can run a quick model, see how it would affect our company or our organization, and we can plan ahead on how we're going to react to that. Or we can even perhaps take action to prevent the coconut accident. And these are just a couple of the kinds of uncertainties that we can model, and it's going to be more interesting doing this kind of work. Data processing is very much moving away from the data center to the edge. And what I mean is that a lot of the complex analytics, you can actually put in your mobile phone, or you can put in a small device that's located in in a local area. And in particular, India is a wonderful example of where edge computing has been taking off. When we look at examples, when I travel around the world describing examples, a lot of them are from India, and you've got some amazing case studies of how you're using localized analytics to be able to produce value. One of the big examples in particular was mobilizing oxygen supply, very tragically, in the worst wave of the COVID pandemic. But it was a test bed to show that actually local mobilization can do a lot more than central control. And so this is going to be a feature of your jobs going forwards, will be edge computing. A third reason why I think business analytics is really important is that a lot of the routine tasks are going to be taken off our hands, and I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of people get afraid of job losses and that kind of thing. This is what people fear, but look at what exciting things we could be doing with our time instead. We have white label fintech. So what this means is that although I'm saying you need some coding skills, you don't need to build these incredibly complex programs. Somebody else will build that for you. You just need a limited knowledge to be able to activate it, to be able to interact with your data. Very, very limited coding knowledge. And that's really great, because in the past you would have to develop this yourself and it would be impossible. We've got robotic process automation, anything that's really, really, really repetitive. We can just train a machine to do for us by copying what we're doing. So this is taking a lot of the really dull routine jobs off our hands. Fintech, regtech. I don't work in the field of finance, but when I look at the regulations and laws around finance, oh my goodness, it's overwhelming. In the United States alone, you've got thousands and thousands of laws you need to comply with. And I look at it and think it's overwhelming. But we do have regtech coming, which is going to start to free up some time. So regtech is going to help you to manage the knowledge of those different financial laws, so that you can, again, spend your time on more interesting things, which is creating new value, new services. And I think that's a really positive development, and that's coming very soon. And then a fourth reason is that legislative changes are coming, and it's creating a very fast moving and complex landscape. Like my image here is a bit difficult to follow because it's changing in lots of different ways. That's what's coming with the legal changes. And again, you know, like a small change in the technology can produce an overnight change in the world, which is what happened in 2002 with social media. It's the same kind of thing with legislation. An overnight change in the legislation can produce a whole new world. And here are 4 of the big legislations that are relevant. GDPR, I know it's European. California Consumer Protection Act, also American, but these laws regulate the 3rd and 5th largest economies in the world. California, just the state of California, is the 5th largest economy in the world. And of course, they're home to data centers. And the hope was always that a single legal interface for the whole EU digital market and California would actually promote growth. It didn't happen. I think, you know, it's difficult because the pandemic intervened and it's hard to know, but perhaps going forwards, having more agreement internationally on what legal interfaces should look like may be a positive thing and help to support development. We have new legislation coming, and I think this is going to be like the GDPR. Just like GDPR was introduced, multinationals adopted it for their European customers, and then they decided, well, we might as well make it global standard. And so very rapidly GDPR went way beyond the borders of Europe, and of course had copycat legislation like the California Consumer Protection Act. And I think the same thing is going to happen with the EU AI Act, which is currently in draft form. It looks at risks, levels of risk for any analytics processes that you're going to carry out. And I'm looking at the draft, so it's not law yet. You have to have a knowledge of the technology to be able to understand whether it's high or low risk. You also have to have a knowledge of the business setting to understand if it's high or low risk. So you have to have some knowledge of both of those to be able to make judgments under this new law that will probably be in place in about 2 years' time. So now is the time to get ready for that and start understanding. The Payment Services Directory, fintech, very exciting. What it does really, ultimately, it leverages aggregators. So an aggregator is, instead of having lots and lots of different companies who have a little bit of data on each different customer, it's one central organization that has a lot of data on each customer. And it's got all sorts of benefits. I mean, in financial markets, it's a powerhouse now of data. The data aggregators are the companies that are being bought for multi-billion contracts. It helps to reduce fraud. It makes payments go smoother, and it increases lots of options for payments. And in particular, when it's carried out with what we call the Open Banking Directory. Bear with me, I'm going to get very technical. There's a thing called an API, and an API is like a backdoor to a website, which allows you to go in, get some information, and store it on your computer. And often you need codes for this. Before 2019 in Europe, all of the banks have their own different APIs, their own different ways of storing the data. And so if you wanted to carry out a financial transaction with one, you had to go through a middleman who could translate, say, the language from Barclays into the language from Lloyd's. And it was a barrier to be able to work with banking. An interoperable API was by law. The UK government forced 9 biggest banks in Britain to use the same API. In other words, they had to agree to use the same rules, the same, like if we think of it like a key or like a safe, you know, the same key to be able to open it. And this led to a huge development in fintech in Britain and lots of innovation in the banking area. And I'm really excited that the Indian government is looking at the same kind of legislative change. And that's going to be exciting. Look at the opportunities that are coming your way when this law comes into place. So get ready for that now. Start learning about it. And what we're finding is that, you know, things like institutionalized trust are really important because it's a difficult world we're navigating. Nobody is hugely confident. It's changing fast. We're all a little bit concerned about what it means for us. Am I being taken advantage of? Am I going to be the victim of anything? And so it means that we need you, not the computer scientists, you to step up and make sure that we have connected governance, that when we are making our rules on ethics and how we're going to behave, that we're able to bring in the data officer, the computer programmer, the business expert, the finance expert, that all together we're able to come up with what we agree is best ethical practice, because each of us has specializations and knowledge that we need to bring into this process. We need a connected approach to risk management. Again, we need to have an understanding of this wide field to be able to ensure that we are taking the steps we need to prevent unnecessary risk. We're dealing with third-party ecosystems, and this is, again, problematic. A lot of the services that you're going to be buying from another company. It's very rare for one organization to do everything. So they will get their servers from Amazon Web Services, for example. They will get their analytics from another company. You know, we see this all the time, as a service, finance as a service. All of these things. We're dependent on third-party ecosystems, and we don't always have a full understanding of what those people have done. How have they trained their algorithms? What data did they train them on? Did they include, for example, Indian citizens when they were training a voice recognition algorithm? That's incredibly important if you're planning on deploying your voice recognition service in your country. And so when we talk about AI, we're talking about a model of AI plus X. Sometimes the X is the Internet of Things, and it's further robotics, but more often than that, the X is you, it's a human. It's having a human in the loop who understands things. And so we are very much looking, when we look to the future, forget where AI has been in the past. It has belonged in the computer science departments. It's going to belong to humans. You can't judge if a technology is high risk if you don't understand the technology and the application. But you also won't know the opportunities of data aggregation if you have no idea what an API is. And you shouldn't be making judgments about new products if you don't understand E2EE. You know, these things, we need to understand all of these kinds of decisions to be able to make the best choices going forward. And this needs us to embrace, you know, new ways of working. And just to illustrate this, and this is my last example, when we think about the Target data breach, this was the largest data breach in retail history. It's a little bit old now. It was a few years back, around about 2006, I think. There were so many opportunities to prevent this data breach. We often think, when we think about data breaches, we panic because we think it just needs one person to make one mistake and click on the wrong link and download the software, and our whole system is vulnerable. And that is kind of what happened with the Target data breach. It was a third-party vendor that clicked on the wrong link and let the software in. But the team in Bangalore picked up on it. There was a data analytics team in Bangalore that noticed the problem and reported it to Target bosses in America, and they ignored it. There were further warning signs. The technology picked up on it. The bosses at Target ignored it. There were problems. There was evidence of high activity, which was the bad guys compiling the data ready to export. Again, the bosses chose to ignore it. There were so many opportunities to intervene and prevent this data breach. It was a human process and human decisions that led to the problems. And so that's why we have more humans to work and to bear on machine and data processes. And we have been here before, particularly teachers, speaking to you. If you are worried and you think, we can't do this, you can. We've been here before. Back in the 1990s, we had to become digitally literate. We had to become digitally literate because the means of communication went digital. If you wanted to stay current, you had to learn how to use an email. You had to be able to find information on a website. You had to learn how to web conference. We had to become digitally literate because communication is so central to business and business practices. In the 2020s, we have to become data literate. For the same reason, decision-making is going digital, and decision-making is so central to everything that we do that we have to become data literate. You did it with digital literacy. We can do it with data literacy too. And we know that technologically gifted people led the way, but the rest of us had to follow. And it's the same thing in the 2020s. We are all going to have to do it. There are huge advantages to being early. And if you're on this call at the moment, you are one of the earliest ones. So if you're very excited, and I hope you are, I mean, obviously you've got exciting new courses coming your way. If any of your faculty feel like you need a little bit of support, log on, contact us. Please do get in touch. If you feel like you need a bit of help with this, please do contact us. And I'm sure we can go through this exciting process of change and new opportunities together. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me with you. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have any. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Extremely glad to have you here, ma'am. Participants may ask questions or clarify their doubts regarding topic of discussion for today. You can either ask directly to madam or type in as a message in the chat box.
I'm looking for my chat. Where is my chat? There we go. Oh, no questions. Q&A. No.
Ma'am, there is a
question in the chat box.
Oh, there is. There's a shortage of talent in data analytics in today's world. There is masses of shortage of talent in data analytics. If you are learning data analytics, you've got an easy career ahead of you. Yes. How can we solve this problem of shortage in this particular area? It is a multidisciplinary subject, and I think, yeah, okay. So this is a great question. Thank you very much, Judith Gamble. Fantastic question. So the question is, the shortage of ticks. Very, very true in the UK as well as in India. There's this persistent gap between demand and skills, generally in the field of computer science, very much in the field of data analytics. I think your question, Jasmine, I think it answers it itself. It's because it is a multidisciplinary subject, and a lot of people think it's not my job. So we did believe that it was going to be the computer scientists that would take this up, because at the beginning you had to have computer science skills to be able to do this. But what we're finding is actually those guys are struggling, unfortunately. They don't have the communication skills, they don't have the business knowledge. And the expectations of them were that they would just be able to come in and solve a lot of problems that they didn't understand. And that of course, can't happen. People need to be able to understand the problem, understand what data might be able to solve the problem, understand how to implement the results as well. When we get the result out, do we have a wolf dog recognition algorithm problem where actually the algorithm's not as great as we thought? Do we have a problem with a third-party algorithm that's been trained, for example, just on male voices, and it's not going to work with any of our female customers because it's never heard a female voice before? We've had technologies like that. These kind of questions are very much the questions that business people will ask. I think that the challenge is trying to persuade people it's your field. It really is. I was very, very fortunate that I was trained by the Web Science Institute. And to give you a little guidance here on how high you have to go, the Web Science Institute was set up by Professor Dame Wendy Hall, who heads up AI research in the UK. She heads up the government advisory body. Professor Leslie Carr, who created open publishing and Creative Commons licensing. Professor Sir Nigel Shadbolt, who heads AI research at Oxford University, and Professor Sir Tim Berners-Lee. He invented the whole World Wide Web, and he invented his little change in the code of the World Wide Web in 2002 led to social media. And he also created a whole branch of AI called semantic web ontologies. These guys created the modern world that we live in today. They transformed the world. And they said about 12, 15 years ago that they didn't understand it, that there were changes that happened in the world as a result of their technical changes that they had no understanding of. It didn't make any sense. They couldn't understand why they would create technically perfect machines and nobody liked them. They would create these little things that they thought were unimportant and everybody loved it. And it exploded. And so they set up a thing called the Web Science Institute to study these things from an interdisciplinary perspective. So I ended up in the computer science department, not because I had computer science skills, I did not, I had none, but because they felt it was important to bring in people with nursing skills. We have musicians, we had historians, we had a lot from education, I was assessment. We had legal teams studying computer science so we could make sense of all of this. And I think the conversations that the Web Science Department were having, 10 years ago have led to things like GDPR and concerns over privacy. They led to concerns over ethics of data analytics and the new EU AI Act. And I think that, I think I was very fortunate to be on that team that said this has to be studied from a multidisciplinary perspective. And it's a case of just trying to persuade the rest of you, you can do it. I did it. I had no computer skills, and there are huge opportunities when you can. And I think that's one of the key things. Yeah. So Pallavi asks, does the quality of data affect the success of business analytics? Absolutely, definitely. We have a phrase, a technical academic phrase, garbage in, garbage out. There is not a machine learning algorithm. There is no algorithm out there that can compensate for bad data. If you've got rubbish data, you'll get a rubbish outcome. And when we look at all of the problematic outcomes, things like racist soap dispensers, which was horrible. We have automatic soap dispensers in bathrooms, in public toilets, and you put your hand under and the machine recognizes, oh, it's a hand, and will give you soap. Except it was only trained on very, very pale hands. Because the data set was fundamentally flawed. It never occurred to the research team developing it. Perhaps hands come in different shades. And, and we have sexist algorithms that have never seen a woman or heard a woman's voice. Rubbish data in, rubbish outcomes. So absolutely, yes, nothing. And again, this is where we need you to look at that data and be able to say, there's a problem with this data. The person who programs the computer, we know, tends not to be able to see these things. They have a very narrow focus. I have a question from Jessie Maria. Which business analytics tools and systems have you worked with? Which one do you feel is the best? Jessie, I feel like you're hoping I'm going to say Power BI or something like that. And I'm not. I'm afraid I'm not. Power BI, Tableau, all of those are wonderful and I do love them and you should learn to use them. But at the end of the day, I think that they will give you some nice insights into what's happening with your data. But I don't think they compensate for having a fundamental understanding of how the machine sees the data, what's going on in the background, what the limitations are. And so I'm afraid I do think Python are the only ways forward. You don't have to spend too much time learning Python. Trust me, you don't have to invest. You don't have to retrain. You can invest a few hours learning it. We've got plenty of courses for you, that really user-friendly courses. And just when you understand how the machine views things like a data table, a list, a matrix, this kind of helps you to understand. When you can see that this machine won't, what is this machine doing with capitals and upper and lower case? Is it tolerant of that? What is it doing with missing values? Because an awful lot of machine learning algorithms will not tolerate a missing value data set. And so it will have to impute something. and that can really mess up your analysis. If it imputes a load of zeros, well, that's going to throw things. If it imputes the same number, that's going to create a pattern that was never there. So I do think at some point you have to get your hands, you have to do it. Go for it. You'll do it. You'll be fine. You have to learn a little bit of Python or R just to understand what's going on in the background. And you can continue to use Power BI and Tableau to get some nice insights. But at the end of the day, you need to understand what's happening underneath the hood, we say, what's happening in the engine, not just the paintworks. What do you think about blockchain? Will it be the catalyst for machine learning and AI? So blockchain is very, very different. And I don't think it's a catalyst for AI at all. Blockchain is really just a verification process. So it's a way of saying that this information is valid and true. We use the word provenance for it mostly. So if I give you a piece of data and I say, well, this is data that I collected in the fields of France in summer 2013, how do you know that is the case? How do you know that piece of data was definitely collected there and then and is a true record? And so what blockchain helps us with is provenance and understanding that the data that we have is not faked, that it comes from a particular place. And so this is why it's so useful for things like cryptocurrencies, because it gives us a guarantee that nobody's making up a big wallet full of cryptocurrency, that we've got a record of the chain that it's gone through, and who's bought it and who sold it and where it's come from. So it's a provenance tool. So I think it is relevant to AI in the sense that, okay, so now we know for sure that this data is safe. This data is what it says it is. I'm not sure fake data is that big of a problem. I've never really come across, I mean, individuals fake data occasionally, but I've never really come across a lot of problems with that. Blockchain is one solution to provenance. I think there are problems with it. It's extremely technologically demanding. Particularly, it's not environmentally friendly. The kind of technology it uses is a kind of like a hash function group bulk ledger, which you don't have to understand. You just have to understand it's incredibly process power heavy. And some of these blockchains are producing as much carbon dioxide as entire nations. Like I think the nation of Bolivia is what Bolivia produces in carbon dioxide is equivalent to what Ethereum produces. And that's a problem, and that can't be sustained forever and ever. And I think there are alternatives to blockchain when it comes to monitoring provenance. Things like open data publishing is just a really easy option. That wolf image I showed you with the wolf and the dog recognition algorithm, the data is openly shared. The code is openly shared. Any of you can go and have a look at it and use it. And I think open data sharing, creates more economic opportunities, because if we look at what weather data or traffic data in America adds to the US economy, it's trillions annually. It's fantastic, billions annually. Fantastic resource. but it also helps us with provenance without any of the downsides that you get with blockchain. Having said that, you know, some companies' data has a value, it has a financial value, and they're not willing to share it. But there are other ways we can verify and validate that the data collection process is fair and just. And things like just a third-party inspector, asking someone to come in and audit your data collection, that can solve that problem. So I think blockchain, I think, is highly problematic as a tool to verify data provenance. I think we've got better alternatives. It's fantastic when it comes to financial markets, but that's a different discussion. Is there any difference between business analytics and business analysis? Not that I know of. No, I would use the words interchangeably. There may be a technical difference. For me, business analytics is just understanding your business mathematically, being able to look at your business mathematically and say, you know, oh, this could be a problem. The evidence suggests that could be a problem. Oh, the evidence suggests this is an opportunity. And then I guess maybe the business analysis would be the human coming in and saying, oh, this is what we could do with this insight. You know, here's the insight. Here's where we could run with it. Here's where we could take it. So Fina Joseph, excellent question. When you are given a new project, what do you do first? Think and speak to as many people as I possibly can. Pause, take a step back, think about what data you have. So this is a great question. Thank you, Fina. What is the first step with a new project? Think about the data you have. Think about it, explore it. Look at the mean. Look at the standard deviation. Look at what variables you have. Look at how many things are missing. Think about what those variables are meant to represent. Really try to understand what could be the problems with this data set, as well as the advantages of this data set. Really understand what that data set is. Look at how the variables are encoded. What format are they? Are they date format? If they're date format, are they consistently date format? If they are strings, if they are categorical, what problems seem to be there? Talk to as many people as I can that are involved in the process, because they will have insight into it. So if I'm, for example, creating an assessment analytics tool, which is my field, I will talk to fellow exam writers, I'll talk to students who take exams, I'll talk to computer science department about what possibilities there are. Talk to as many people as possible about this process to get as much insight as I can before I then start cleaning up the data, which takes a long time, thinking about what algorithms I'm going to use. And then once I've got an idea of what I want to do, the way we do it with machine learning is very different from traditional statistics. We have a tendency to just throw every algorithm at the data and then see what results come out, which, if you come from a traditional statistic background, sounds wrong. Because traditionally in statistics, you think very carefully about what process you're going to carry out on the data. You all agree, you sit around in a room and agree which process is perfect, and then you run it once, and then the result comes out and everybody's happy. In machine learning, we throw every algorithm we have at the data set and see what comes out. Computer science way, not the mathematical way. But it does make sense, because sometimes these data sets have qualities and properties that are very difficult for the human eye to see, because they're huge. They're so huge you can't inspect them. So that's kind of the process. And then when the results do come out, really think carefully about how the machine could have reached those results, what they could mean, how you interpret it going forwards. Really important that we're not putting too much trust in the machines. So great question, thank you. And yes, and reminding you all to fill in a feedback form, please. That's a request from Sindhu, George, who needs the feedback form completed. Please do that before you go. Right, oh, sorry, there is a question. Amidst the challenges and risks to this area, which according to you is the major one? I think we are addressing the challenges and risks a lot. I think I think that perhaps if I was talking about 4 or 5 years ago, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm around machine learning and what the machines could do, and not enough stress on ethics and what the humans need to bring to it. And I think that is changing. I think the conversation has definitely changed, and we've understood now that we need human-centric AI. So I think that's one of the, I think we're solving that problem. I think the biggest challenge at the moment is just our over-reliance on third-party everything. And when I say third-party everything, I really do mean that. So even if I'm going to carry out the analysis myself, say I want to train a machine to recognize, say I want to train a chatbot to be able to interact with my customers. So instead of having an FAQ section on my website, I'm going to have an interactive chatbot. Then even so, the most common thing these days would be to get a ready trained algorithm in. So to go to Tesla, for example, and buy their GPT-3 chatbot algorithm, which is already super duper trained to be able to be a conversational interface, and just apply that to my scenario. But then that could be a problem, because maybe my customers have different kinds of conversations that ready trained algorithm hasn't seen before. Or maybe I have a problem because that ready trained algorithm has been trained on social media data, and there's some really unpleasant, offensive, awful stuff on social media, and the machine has no ethics. It will just repeat what it's seen the humans say. So that could be a problem. And so I decide, okay, I'm not gonna use that. I'm gonna train the machine myself on my own data set. I think I've got enough data. But then I still am using an algorithm I didn't write. Somebody else wrote that algorithm for me, and I'm going to train it on my data, but I don't really know the details of that data, that algorithm. And this is the nature of using third-party services. We haven't got access to a lot of information about what the machine is doing, how it's doing it. We just more or less know the process. We more or less know the outcome. So I think that is a huge problem we face going forwards. How do we work with these third-party services? How do we ask the right questions of our suppliers to know what's going on? And the second problem, of course, is data. We talk about data. Actually, when you start trying to do things with data, it's quite hard to find enough data or to get your hands on data. And you'll find this because a lot of data is in private hands. And so just finding the right data is also a huge challenge. Thank you, Jesna, for a great question. Okay, I think I've come to the end of the questions. Thank you so much. Wonderful to be with you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was quite an informative session for us as freshers in this field. To extend the note of gratitude, I invite Dr. Divya George, Coordinator and Assistant Professor, Research Department of Commerce.
Pallavi, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. Our respected resource of the day, Dr. Claire Walsh, Principal Dr. Martin K., Dean and Head of the Department, Dr. Viju Janam, Vice Principals, Organizing Secretary of Fincon 2022, Professor Simple George, my dear teachers, scholars, and students from various colleges. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on the international conference, Fincon 2022, organized by Research Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College, Autonomous Thrissur. For the last few hours, we have gone through a topic of great significance in our academic life, business analytics. As we have experienced in modest language, our resource person explained the topic, business analytics. She gave us an insight into the applications of business analytics, like how to analyze the data from multiple sources, use advanced analytics and statistics to find hidden patterns in large data sets. On my own behalf and on behalf of St. Thomas College, Autonomous Thrissur, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our resource person, Dr. Claire Walsh, for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Thank
On
you
behalf,
so much. Pleasure to
thank
be
you.
with you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, on behalf of Research Department of Commerce, I extend a very hearty gratitude to our principal, Reverend Dr. Martin K., who preside over this conference, and also for supporting us in organizing such a grand international conference, Fincon 2022. Thank you, Principal Dr. Martin K. An event of this dimension can't happen overnight, and it's meticulous planning and execution and an eye of detail. And we are sure it's the heart and hands of Dr. Biju John and Dean and Head of Commerce made this international conference a reality. So I thank Dr. Biju John M, who have been the backbone of the conference. Thank you, sir. And I must mention our profound sense of appreciation to our vice principals for aiding us in organizing this FinCon 2022. Thank you, Dr. Alfonso Matthew. Thank you, Dr. Andrew Tony, and thank you, Dr. E.T. John. As we all know, each and every second of this session were wonderfully organized and coordinated by our organizing secretary, Professor Sindhu George. It would be an easy task to coordinate an event of this dimension in an online platform, but she did it with great enthusiasm and energy. I extend a very big thank you to Professor Sindhu George for supporting me in organizing this conference. Thank you, Sindhu. I profoundly thank our MC of the day, Ms. Pallavi Muralidharan, for her immensely superb anchoring, and I also thank Ms. Alina Rose for her melodious voice. I also take this opportunity to thank the entire technical team of our college for rendering their valuable time and help to improve the quality of the session. Finally, I thank all the fellow participants, retired teachers, scholars, faculty, and students from various colleges for their minute-to-minute support, suggestions, and interactions on every point of time to make our session a vibrant one. Once again, thank you all. Thank you.
So, thank you, ma'am.
So we have concluded today's program. Thank you all.
Thank you.